Hey YouTube!
What's up? Today we are coming to you with another hashtag Ask2Beeps. So we ask questions on Twitter and Facebook and Patreon, and you
answer them? No, we don't ask questions.
We don't ask questions.
We ask you to ask us questions, and now we're gonna answer them.
And then we answer them.
And the theme of this month's Ask2Beeps is growing up gay.
Natasha asked, how long did you want to come out before you did? I did not want to come out at all. I wasn't ready to.
When you came out, you weren't ready?
Yeah, I kind of came out out of necessity. Telling my parents before they were visiting us in London. Didn't want it to be weird, so I came out to them before they came, and then it didn't end up coming, and it was a huge mess. But I definitely would have done it differently later on that year when I was more comfortable and ready to have that conversation.
I think that when I was in high school, I had ideas of oh gosh, I'm gonna have to come out at some point, but also not really sure if I ever was going to, because I wasn't sure if I really was gay. But then once I kind of decided in my mind that I was, or that I was with you and I was comfortable with that relationship, I was ready to do it right away. Well, I think it really took me finding someone that I really connected with that made me comfortable with it, and then at that point it just was no big deal to me. Not that it was no big deal, but it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be when I was growing up. Lewis asked, do you think your parents knew you were gay when you were younger, and did they ever admit it?
I mean, you hear sometimes of this happening where it's oh honey, I already knew.
My parents were super shocked when I came out. In that moment, in that conversation, they both had their jaws drop. But as time has progressed and we've had more conversations about it, my mom at least has kind of admitted that she kind of knew when I was younger. It wasn't confirmed until obviously I confirmed it for them, but she had inklings and she wasn't super surprised looking back on my childhood.
I think it's probably a similar thing for me. In the moment, it's oh, okay. I think they actually reacted perfectly, which wasn't discrediting my coming out, but also making it totally not a big deal. I knew that they were gonna be okay with it. I knew it was gonna be a comfortable conversation anyway, but it doesn't make it any less scary. Lizzie asked, do you still have to come out to new people you meet, and is that hard to do?
I think a common saying among the LGBTQ community is that you kind of have to come out every day. It is a conversation that you tend to have a lot. I do think that it does get easier. I think sharing that with other people becomes something that you eventually become happy and proud to do, but it's not easy right away, for sure.
Personally speaking, living in New York has made it a lot easier, because I kind of just assume everyone either knows someone who's gay and is okay with that, or they're just used to being around gay people, that I'm not an anomaly for them. I'll just casually mention my boyfriend, which is pretty easy to do because our lives are so intertwined. Even if it's oh, what'd you do over the weekend? Oh, my boyfriend and I saw a show. And that kind of answers the question for them. I came out to them, and it doesn't have to be a big deal at all.
I think moving to New York for me also was a big game changer for that part of my life. When you move to a new city and are meeting totally new people every single day, it's easy to be this is my identity now. I'm casually referencing my boyfriend and it's no big deal. Ryan asked, do you wish that you came out while you were single rather than dropping the bombshell of coming out in a relationship?
For me, actually, I think it was easier to come out as just being in a relationship. I sort of avoided the label of gay. I came out as having a boyfriend. By the way, you know John, you like John, so we're together. And I kind of let them put the pieces together without saying it in so many words.
I think we're really lucky in that sense. Most people aren't necessarily lucky to have someone to hold their hand through the process of coming out, and it's very scary when you're doing it on your own. So I think that coming out as a single person would have been a completely different experience, not good or bad, but just different. So I can't really speak to that because I don't really know what it would be like.
Joey asked, was and is it difficult to make new gay friends?
I think that a lot of the difficulty for us in making gay and queer friends had a lot to do with internalized homophobia that we've been kind of raised with. Just in the society you live in, you're taught to hate yourself if you're gay. When we started coming out, we didn't want to be those kinds of gays, and we were oh, we're gay, but we can totally assimilate into straight culture, and we don't have to have a group of gay friends, and we're totally fine hanging out with straight people. I look back at my younger gay self and kind of cringe because I had that thought process. I think we kind of missed out on a lot of that gay culture growing up. We do have gay friends now, and as we've lived in New York and we've got to meet so many cool, diverse people, it's been pretty easy to make those friends, but I think we had a bad attitude about it going into the process.
Absolutely, and I think YouTube helped a lot with that because we actually found a community of people who were being artistic and creative and all had a similar passion. I think our lives are so much richer having people we can relate to and be part of that community.
A few of you asked if we had any LGBTQ+ role models either in our personal lives or through media representation while we were growing up.
When we saw this question, we tried to think about it and my mind just went blank. I think that's really bad.
That is really bad. I couldn't think of anyone off the top of my head either. I don't think I was really exposed to much queer culture growing up. Representation in media was pretty low at the time. The fact that like when Ellen DeGeneres came out, it was like this huge story and she was on like Time magazine cover and like everyone talked about it. That was such an isolated incident and there weren't that many examples of other big media personalities coming out at the time.
It was hard enough to even know another gay person in my life who was out. There were maybe like 1 or 2 people in high school who were brave enough to tell their story at such a young age. It's great now that we have movies like Love, Simon coming out. It normalizes it. You have this kind of media representation. You have YouTube. You have shows that have huge selection of queer people represented.
Even going back further in history in the 20th century, there was even fewer examples compared to our time. So it's only getting better and better as time progresses.
Gabriel So Tasty asked, how old were you when you started finding men attractive?
We were having this conversation the other day actually. I can now look back and remember even when I was in like 1st and 2nd grade, gravitating towards the way boys looked and looking at them in a certain way, but obviously not understanding that that meant that I was attracted to them. I think the first time that I really noticed a boy was around 6th grade, like middle school. But even then, I didn't know that it meant that I was like gay. It was more just like, oh, this is kind of weird. I wonder why I'm thinking this way.
I have like a similar experience. My earliest memories of just interacting with humans was like obsessed with other boys. Get them to take their clothes off, which is pretty common for like little kids
yeah,
to do.
Yeah, I'll do that.
That was like very clear cut looking back now. But I didn't know that that was attraction. I just knew that like that's what I wanted. It probably wasn't until I was like 12 or 13 when I actually started thinking of people in a sexual way that I already just knew that. Basically, since I was able to be attracted to people, I was attracted to boys.
Dennis asked, when you first started questioning your sexuality, was there a particular look or body part that you were attracted to?
Are you asking me?
You already nodded.
I mean, for me, it was like all about the peen. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, I was just trying to get people to take their clothes off.
Can you guess what mine was?
I know what yours was.
What was it?
Was it armpits?
Yeah,
armpit hair.
Armpit hair.
He would always look down the sleeves of boys like, oh, like, has he started growing armpit hair yet?
I remember being in like 6th grade and seeing some boys had armpit hair and not necessarily being like sexually attracted to it, but being very intrigued. And it was kind of like my mission then to like figure out like who had armpit hair and who didn't.
Since you two had girlfriends in college, do you think you'd be straight if you hadn't met?
I think about that sometimes, and I think it would have taken me a lot longer to come out if I hadn't met you.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's possibly true. There's no way that we'd be straight now though.
No, at this point I don't think so, but I think it would have been a few more years at least. I think it would have been at least until after I graduated college.
I like moved to New York.
Right, if I had moved to New York or I initially moved to LA, probably once I got there, maybe I would have started to feel comfortable, but I don't even think that I would have come out right away as gay even when I was in a new city. So you helped me along that path.
Thanks, you helped me too.
Thanks.
High five.
That's what we do after sex. Joshua asked, do you feel that you went under the gaydar growing up?
I definitely did to some extent because I was so involved in like sports and karate. People thought that was like macho and masculine and I was kind of like an athletic kid.
Yeah, I think a lot of people make surface assumptions about you, and if you fit into certain boxes, then therefore you must fit into other boxes. So if you play sports, then you can't be gay. I didn't play sports, but I also don't think that I was necessarily someone that people assumed was gay right away. At least that was the impression my friends gave me, because most of my friends were really surprised once I came out. There were some people who did make fun of me, especially in like middle school, calling me a fag, because I had a lot of female friends. But then once I got to high school, I think my friend group kind of diversified. I mean, that's a curious question, and I should have asked more of my friends when I went to my reunion, so I guess I have to wait for my 15 year.
Well, I've got mine coming up this year, so...
True, you should ask
them. Lane asks, did you receive any negative messages from religion while growing up gay? I was definitely aware of the negative messaging in religion and that homosexuality was a sin, but that was never taught to me or told to me in any context.
You also grew up with atheist parents, so that probably helped.
Yeah.
I was raised Catholic, and I was also aware of how homosexuality was a sin, but it wasn't something that my parents passed on to me. There wasn't like anything we ever heard around the house. We were both pretty lucky that religion wasn't a super big part of our upbringings, and therefore we weren't afraid of being damned to hell because of our sexuality.
It kind of did suck just knowing that there were people out there who already hated me and thought I was going to hell just because, like, they didn't even know me, just because of something about me.
Matthew asked, not to copy RuPaul, but if you could speak to your 16-year-old self, what would you tell him?
I would tell him, you will be able to be gay and be proud of it someday and not be ashamed. I think at that time I knew how I felt and I knew what my future was going to be, but I thought that my future was going to be marrying a woman, just living with shame for the rest of my life. So I would want to tell him like, hey, you're going to be okay with this someday.
I would tell my 16-year-old self, don't kid yourself, you're not going to start working out until you're at least 28. No, seriously, I would tell my 16-year-old self that it gets better. I know that that's like kind of a cliched term now. It was, again, something that I was afraid I was gonna just have to swallow this idea and like make the best of being straight. Hopefully I could find a girl that I was like attracted to enough that I could make it work. I would tell them that you don't have to worry about that because things are gonna get better, you're gonna find your true identity, and you're gonna be happy.
Zippy asked, did you have any misconceptions about gay people and gay culture when growing up? I think that I thought it was a lot less common than it was. Simply, I didn't know anybody who was gay. And now knowing that like 10% of the population is, like, that was shocking to me. Now it seems like it's flipped and like 90% of the people you meet are gay.
I have this void in my brain about what I thought about it because I think it was just not talked about, right. So I didn't really think about it. I don't really have an answer. Is that weird?
But I think that is your answer. Like, your misconception is that there is a void of culture where it's so wrong. There is such a strong, loving culture around the gay community, and now there's just so much more visibility about it. Titus asked, who was your first childhood crush? I think we've answered this one before, and it's hard to pinpoint the exact one, but pretty early on, we were both fond of Frankie Muniz.
Oh, right. Well, that's not who I was gonna say.
Were you gonna say Hilary Duff? Because I'm gonna wheel this chair onto the balcony.
That's why it was confusing, because I did think that I had a crush on Hilary Duff, but then I also probably had a crush on Aaron Carter, and they were like dating, so I was jealous of both of them.
Yeah.
Is that weird?
You wanted to be him, but you wanted to be her so you could be with him.
Right, exactly. And our final question comes from Tommy, who asked, do you ever wish you weren't born gay?
Ever? Yes. When I was struggling with my identity, I was like, this would be so much easier if I were just straight. I just wish I was born straight. Now I definitely don't feel that way. I'm very proud of who I am and the person I've become.
This is a tough question. If I'm being honest, yes, I probably did wish that I was straight in my past, but I feel so proud of who I am now that it's hard to even fathom that I used to think that way, because now there's no way I would change it.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to our patrons for being a part of our Patreon community. If you want to check that out, patreon.com/2beeps.
That was one of my favorite Q&As we've ever done. I feel like a lot of times our videos are silly and just showing a part of our lives, but it's also important to have these conversations where we're really speaking to our truth. So thank you for watching and thank you for participating. Follow us on all our social media so you can participate in future Ask 2 Beeps.
I'm Beep.
I'm Beep.
We are 2 Beeps.
Peacing out.
Beeps out.
What is that? Thank you so much for sticking to the end of the video. Last week we made a video called Types of Makeouts.
So you should watch it.
We're gonna link it right here. Over here.
Click.
It was fun to make, because we got to make out.
I know, my lips were so chapped at the end of it.